listening to the Indie Echo Podcast, a showcase of independent music and the artists that make it. I'm Jordan, producer at Hi5 Music. Charlotte, North Carolina is home to the Panthers, the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and today's guest, singer-songwriter Kevin Goodwin.
I'm diving in. Diving in.
My name is Kevin Goodwin. I'm a singer-songwriter from Charlotte, North Carolina. I moved to Charlotte when I was about 6. Stayed in temporary housing for banking families because my dad worked in banking. And eventually, now that I'm an adult, moved right back into the same complexes that are now condos. So kind of came full circle. I started playing piano when I was about 7. And I started because my grandmother bought my family a baby grand piano, a Wurlitzer, and no one in my family was really musically inclined. So it kind of just sat around. My mother would play from time to time. But my dad, when I was going around singing his best rendition of Bill Withers' Lean On Me, and after hearing that, I sat down at the piano, kind of fiddled around, and within a couple minutes was playing the whole song. And that was just something that really connected with me in a way that nothing ever had before. So from that point on, I was pretty addicted to playing and just the piano in general.
So you play by ear?
I do, yeah. I do both though. I've had to learn a lot because I teach piano and vocal lessons too. So I had to learn how to read pretty well and understand a lot of theory. And I did eventually take lessons myself, but in the beginning I was like a lot of kids who probably have, can play by ear. I know that because my students are the same way sometimes. You get very full of it and you're like, oh, I know how to play. I can just hear the song and sit down and figure it out. But I was really glad I did eventually learn the theory and the other facets of it, like sight reading and stuff like that, because that's all, it helps you grow as a musician eventually.
Definitely. I haven't made it that far yet. I still play by ear, but I do want to, train more just to get that in me. It's always good to do that.
It's hard though, because when you can do that, it's because it's also fun to play by ear, because it's kind of like putting a puzzle together, because you got to sit down and figure it out and be like, is that the right note? Is this the right chord? So,
and especially me, who started on drums, and drums, unless you're in a marching band, you really don't need notes or
right. Yeah, if you can keep rhythm, you can keep rhythm.
Yeah, if you can feel it, you can get it done.
So I think the basis of my kind of influences early on were people like Elton John and Queen and Journey, because that's what my parents listened to a lot. And I think I would assume probably the case for most people, is you kind of, in the very beginning when you're a little kid, especially this is before Spotify and everything existed, because I grew up in the 90s. So I would just always hear and listen to the records that my parents were playing at home or in the car, playing CDs. So it was a lot of that for me. But then as I started getting older into the early 2000s, I think my musical taste was a lot more definitely diverse. And it got to the point where I was listening to a lot of punk rock, kind of soft stuff like Green Day, My Chemical Romance, nothing too hardcore, but that kind of stuff mixed in with a lot of that early 2000s pop rock, which was like The Fray, Matchbox 20, One Republic, Goo Goo Dolls, all those people. Those were the people that I really kind of drifted towards musically.
And I hear a lot of that on your EP, Heart of the City.
Well, I'm glad. Thanks, man. I'm glad.
I definitely noticed those influences. Yeah.
Cool. Because I feel like, man, if I had maybe been born a decade or two earlier, that would have been my sweet spot, because I'm writing the songs that sound kind of like that. So hopefully, I'm hoping there's still an audience for that. But
how did you get into writing music specifically?
Yeah, so after learning how to play by ear for a couple of years, I actually decided I wanted to start doing piano lessons. So I asked my parents. I was like, hey, would you guys get me classes so I could learn from a teacher and try to learn how to read and understand theory, because I did want to learn those things. So they got me this really great teacher, and who kind of became a life mentor really to me. And he used to put on piano recitals for his students. And one year when I was about 10 or 11, I had written a song, just an instrumental song, because I was way too self-conscious to sing. at that point in my life. But I asked him, I said, can I play this original piece I wrote? And he was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. So I got up and played it at the recital, and the reception to it was so crazy to me because a lot of the other kids' parents were coming up to me after and saying how much they enjoyed it and the things it reminded them of. And that was very kind of overwhelming emotionally for me as a 10-year-old, that a song I'd written without even any lyrics that kind of connected with people who I didn't know. That was really exciting to me. And kind of that moment really sparked in me the need and the want to write more. And I've just been writing ever since then and trying to hone it and get better and better as much as I can.
So always solo, or did you have a band or anything?
Always been solo, but I do have a band that plays live shows with me. And on the record, there is definitely a ton of other musicians. My band usually plays on the records with me. So a lot of the songs we bring in, I have a great guitarist and bassist and drummer. And then my producer, Chris, will play on the songs a lot as well. He does a lot of the string and orchestral stuff. He really writes.
Cool. I love that stuff that's present on the album. Have you considered writing for others, like as a songwriter?
I have, actually. It's something that I used to never think about because I would write these songs and they were so specific, and they still are. When I write songs and put them out under my name, they're very, very autobiographical. Everything in the songs has happened to me or was in some capacity a very real thing that happened in my life. And so I've never written from the perspective of somebody else or taken it in a direction that was fictional. It's always been 100% real and authentic. But I'd love to do that and experiment with what it would be like to write for someone else and kind of write about an experience that wasn't my own, because I think that would be such a cool thing. And there's a lot of artists that I really admire who write their own music, but then they write music for other people and it comes out awesome.
You know Justin Bieber's Love Yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was like quite literally an Ed Sheeran song that he gave to Justin because he thought it was like too mean or something like that.
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, so you know, it doesn't have to be, it could be things that are still you, but like maybe not quite your artist, if that makes sense.
Right. It's not the persona that you feel about yourself. And that's the thing. Everything I've written and put out so far has been very consistent with who I am as a person. But I think it would be really fun and exciting to kind of almost like an actor step into somebody else's feelings and someone else's position and write about that, because that to me is a really exciting idea.
Was This Is How It Starts your first release?
It was, yeah. That was my very first professional release anyways. I'd done some home recording stuff that was not up to par at all with the kind of production that I'm doing now. But I had done stuff like that prior, but that was my first real release.
And so how did Heart of the City come about?
So I definitely had wanted to do a follow-up EP after releasing This Is How It Starts. I was fortunate enough to have a couple of people listen to it, which was really cool because I think you never know when you're an artist putting something out for the first time. You're like, I hope somebody likes this and listens to it, but I wasn't sure. And there were people, and that was really exciting that people were receiving the songs well and really listening to them. So I started writing more and also pulling out some older songs that I never had released before, and decided to put out Just Tonight as a single, which is one of the songs off of Heart of the City, and then Diving In, which is another song off of Heart of the City. And after that, I just kind of whipped 3 more together and put it all together and thought, you know, I want to put out a second EP. It's been about 2 years, so I was like, this feels like the right time.
Yeah, Just Tonight is fun because it starts as the ballad, and then in the last 30 seconds, it just kind of explodes into like double time drums and everything.
Yeah, that's a really fun one to play live because people don't see that coming with the time change and the tempo change and everything. That's a really fun one to see people's reaction to. That song in particular is about having a one-night stand and kind of knowing that it's not going anywhere, that it's not going to have this deeper meaning, but kind of trying to trick yourself into thinking it is, or, you know, if you're knowing it the whole time, hoping that it's going to be more than that. And I think a lot of the lyrics kind of reflect that. And it is kind of, I think that's in a lot of my songs, the way that I do end up kind of having a conversation with myself because it is a lot of lyrics where I am kind of telling it to myself as if I need to hear it. Sometimes songs can be really difficult to write, and other times they feel like they just kind of come out of nowhere for me. And I feel like it's a gift I'm just getting. And I'm like, okay, I got this melody in my head and I go write it out. Sometimes it comes incredibly easy, and other times it's a lot of work to find the right lyrics, the right chords, things like that. But I think the hardest part for me usually as an artist is the recording process, because I'm somebody who gets in my head a lot. So it's hard to go in and try to have this attitude of like, oh, no pressure, no stress. And my producer is really great about making it a cool atmosphere. But at the same time, I go in a lot of times and I overthink everything. So it's just for me, when I'm recording it and producing it, just trying to let go a little bit and be like, just feel the song, just let yourself be in the song and in the moment. And just getting myself in the right headspace like that is the hardest part for me.
Now, what I like about your music is that even though these releases are, fully produced with a band and everything, you can tell that they were written like at a piano or with guitar or something, like just very bare bones. You can tell that like the songwriting is just really on point. And was that important to you to get across in that, not make it too overproduced,
No, actually, and this is the first time anyone's ever told me that, but I love that. I'm really glad that that's how it came off to you, because I love that it can show through that way. I've never heard anyone say that before, but it is something that I think, because the instrument that I play, which is either piano or ukulele on the songs, is usually at the forefront. That's probably why it has that, I guess, that kind of flavor to it, is probably just because that is literally how I write all of them. It's me sitting at a piano or ukulele by myself, structuring it out. The song usually, it has to be good enough on its own, with just piano or just ukulele, that I think at the end of the day, oh, that's a really catchy melody. I really like those lyrics. It has to really resonate with me just in the very acoustic format like that to even make it to the point where I would bring in the band and produce it heavily like that.
Now, I do want to ask you about I Won't Stop with the ukulele. Is that a glockenspiel you have?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's a little.
I love glockenspiel. It's kind of like
a patch. It wasn't a real glockenspiel.
Oh, yeah.
I just played it on piano, but it's the glockenspiel sound.
Yeah, I love glockenspiel sounds. I put them in a lot of my work as well.
Cool.
Did you come to your producer with your song on ukulele and be like, have at it? Or how did that work?
Yep, basically. I just came, that's how I come in with the piano or ukulele, depending on the song, and I'll put it down with the piano and ukulele, and then we'll kind of build from there. That's always the very first thing that we do. And on that one in particular, there was a lot of cool ideas that my producer had that he came up with, where he was like, oh, I think we should have kind of an organ sound in the background. And he did a lot of like snaps that he would put in as kind of the drum beat, cutting and pasting those all together and doing a lot of things like that. One of the songs we did on the first EP, he had like 50 different drum tracks or something crazy like that. I think it was for Sparks, that ended up being just so much production on the drums that it sounded like a Lord of the Rings type of drums in the background, just really dramatic, and a lot of different drums all at the same time with different cadences. And he's really, really good at that. And it's also a lot of fun to do that. And just sometimes we'll try things out and be like, what if we put strings here? What if we put some horns here? And it's kind of just trial and error of what feels like it's right with the song and what feels like it's right with everything else that is there so far.
I won't stop telling you how beautiful you are, 'cause you're all I need. You're the girl that I thought could live inside my dreams.
Another thing I like about the EP is that each song is very distinct. And so was that intentional in terms of not having, two songs that sound almost exactly the same? Or were there some that, in the cutting room floor that you're like, oh, I'll save that for another project?
Yeah, that definitely is intentional. That's something that I've always wanted to do as an artist, is when I make a collection of songs like a record, I definitely want it to be something that hopefully holds people's attention throughout the entire length of that album. And doesn't have any dull moments or any anything too repetitive. I like to have things that tell stories in completely different ways and completely different emotions. So I try to really mix it up with, this song is kind of jazzy, and that song's really upbeat. It's got a lot more guitar. This one's really sad and down tempo, and it's very piano driven. And I definitely purposely pick songs that are very different so I can group them together and then have a whole work that kind of feels like a story. That's how I want it to feel. I want it to feel like a movie when I have a record, which is basically, it's got a beginning, which is very different from the middle, which is very different from the end. So that's definitely intentional.
Yeah, I love that about it, because I Won't Stop, it's very wholesome. It's very like lighthearted and wholesome, and then you end on Hard on the Door, which is a very heartfelt, piano ballad, and I appreciate both because they're, the juxtaposition.
Can you promise me that when you leave my heart on the door? 'Cause I just can't stay with you in a suitcase, even if it's not mine anymore.
City Lights, that jazzy rock sound is just so cool to me, and it sounds very city, if that makes sense,
I'm glad, because that's
Were
that's
you
what
channeling like New York or something? Like, what were we thinking?
I was actually channeling Charlotte. So that song was written about Charlotte, downtown Charlotte, where I currently live. And that was just one that one wrote itself very quickly, because when I came up with that chord progression, that's like you said, it felt very city. So I knew immediately when I was playing with that, I knew exactly that song was going to be about Charlotte and about the city. So that one I did feel, and I'm glad it came off musically that way.
Yeah.
But that one really, really felt to me like you were downtown somewhere in a really large city.
I wanna see those city lights, the skyline every time I walk out my door at night. I wanna feel the rush in the city I love on the street. That city air, it tastes so sweet.
The song, like all other songs, I wrote completely on my own. And then when we came in, I think what really jazzed it up was the way we had our guitar player set his tone, and also we had an actual horn player come in and play trumpet on that song. So I think it was kind of an amalgamation of the chords and then the way that we produced it, really trying to get that sound and get that feeling that, kind of can transport you to feeling like you're at that place.
Mm-hmm. When you're talking about the late 90s, early 2000s pop rock influence, I hear a lot of that on Diving In. So that was, were there any, specific bands or specific songs you were trying to emulate there?
I think if anything, it was probably close to, and this is the case for quite a bit of my music, especially the upbeat ones, Jack's Mannequin. I'm not sure if that's a band you're familiar with, but Andrew McMahon, who's the lead singer of that band, main songwriter, he's one of my favorite artists, and I have a lot of songs that are kind of influenced by that distinctive sound that he has.
Have you considered, doing collaborations with other producers or other artists and things like that?
Absolutely. In fact, some of the songs that I have that I want to release soon are songs that I would love to do as duets. And I've got a couple of artists on a short list, which is very wishful thinking for me, of people who I could maybe rope into doing the song with me, because I am a really big fan of their music and love their voices. I'm somebody who is 100% open to doing different things and trying new things. And especially, and this kind of goes back to the songs being different on the record, I want to be an artist who is always trying new things and branching out and not stuck in one. I don't want to be stuck in one genre or one exact place. I want to be able to do different things, be versatile, and write different kinds of music for different kinds of moods and different kinds of people. So I am not one to say no to anything new or exciting musically. So that is definitely something I would be up for.
I definitely feel that, because one of the producers that really got me into making music myself, this guy BT, He's primarily known for electronic music, but he's done film scores. And the album that I think grabbed me the most, he would have a dance track, and then a pop song, and then a rock song, and then an acoustic ballad, and another rock song, and then we'd go back to dance. And it was just all over the place, but it all felt cohesive. And that's something I really like to find in other artists as well. So I definitely appreciate the evolution in an artist's career, whether album to album or even song to song, like you've done so far.
Thank you. And yeah, I totally agree with that, because I have a lot of artists that I feel the same way about, where, growing up, sometimes you hear them and then you hear another song and you're like, oh, who's this by? And then you're like, oh my gosh, that's the same person. Mm-hmm. And I love having a moment like that, because it's like, wow, that's so different. But that's how life is. People are like that. We're so different and multifaceted. And so I don't see why music shouldn't kind of reflect that in a lot of ways.
Have you ever visited, Nashville or, New Orleans or something like that?
Absolutely. I've actually visited both of those places and loved both of them, especially Nashville. Nashville was a really cool town to be in. And I got to play at the Bluebird Cafe at a songwriter's night there, which was really exciting for me as kind of a young adult. I think I might have been 18 or 19 at the time, something like that.
So your first gigs, were they nerve-wracking, or did you kind of just zone out and just start playing?
Oh no, they were definitely nerve-wracking, because I was somebody who I don't think stage fright's the appropriate word, because I wasn't terrified ever getting up on stage, but I definitely was not comfortable being on stage at first, especially singing. Singing's something that came into the picture later for me, because I was very comfortable playing piano, had been doing that since 7, but singing was not something I actually started going out and doing in front of people until I was about 14 or 15. And so that took a lot more time to get used to. I also was not as talented at singing, so I had to work a lot harder at singing to actually become decent and not sound bad. So I was aware of that, luckily. I didn't know that, but I knew I was going to have to work hard and really get comfortable being on stage and singing in front of people. So that was definitely a long journey to get to the point where it became comfortable, and where now I really enjoy it and look forward to doing it.
And now you teach singing, right?
I do. Yeah, I teach singing and piano.
Well, you should come out with your own online masterclass or something.
That does seem to be the thing that's happening now. Yeah. I see every artist. It's like Charlie Puth songwriting masterclass, Justin Bieber fashion masterclass. It's like all these things that people are doing now.
I think Ryan Tedder had a similar one.
He's actually one that I look up to a lot, Ryan Tedder, because of the fact that he's written for so many people. His song credits are ridiculous. He's written obviously all the songs for One Republic for the most part, most of those. And then on top of that, he's written for people like Adele and a ton of other artists. And his name is just everywhere as far as song credits go. So I have a lot of respect for him. And also just anyone who really writes their own music is a big influence on me, because that's the way I've always done it. And I always look up to the people who, when you look at their music, it's just one name on the page. It's not, 6 or 17 people, because especially in pop music nowadays, you look at a song, and if you're really looking at the music, the credits have 10 people's names attached to it. Mm-hmm. But I really resonate more with the people who write songs that were just them, which is like Sarah Bareilles and John Mayer and artists like that I really love their music. And I think part of that is that you can feel that it's authentic a lot of times, because it's just them. It's just one person who wrote everything. And that's how I've always wanted to keep it, for the most part, with my releases, because I wanted to have that same kind of authenticity where it's all the music and words and everything are just coming from one person's perspective, because I think that comes through in a really honest and organic way.
Is there a standout moment in your so far career, a moment you always look back on fondly, or something you're very proud of?
There's actually a couple, and they all kind of, to me, are on the same level. It's hard to pick just one, but it's any time that someone has reached out to me who I didn't know, and they found my music and one of my songs connected with them in a special kind of way. And I've been fortunate enough to have that happen a couple times, where people have reached out to me and been like, oh, this song really helped me through a hard time, or I really relate to these lyrics and I really enjoy this. And just that kind of stuff, hearing that from people, just knowing that your song connected with somebody, which is what it's all about for me, is there's nothing else that compares to it, because that's just such an incredible feeling to know that you're getting to do the thing that you wanted to do, which is just really connect with people and have that song mean something to them. More recently, somebody that I was really influenced by a lot, especially the ukulele songs, which is funny because I'm sure you can't hear it, but is Bony Bear. I really like Bony Bear's music a lot, especially his first record and follow-up record. Those two, For Emma, Forever Ago, is a record that I just love to listen to. But also bands in the indie genre really influenced me a lot as well, like Death Cab for Cutie. Even though they're still relevant now, I guess they're kind of an older band, but I got into them when I was in high school, and they were always really, really big influence from that point on.
Still hoping for that second Postal Service record at some point.
Right, we'll see. We'll see if that ever happens.
Like every couple of years, there's a rumor of it coming back, but
yeah, it's one of those things. It's like when My Chemical Romance got back together. I feel it was like people were thinking it was going to happen for years, and it just didn't happen. And didn't happen. But maybe it will. Maybe they will come out with a follow up one day.
Yeah, like you were saying, you'd always listen to what your parents listened to.
Right.
But for me, it was a little different because we had these videotapes of my dad's band playing, and so I would watch those over and over again. So it was all like the top 40 stuff you would know from the 70s, 80s, 90s. So I really got into Love Shack. That was my jam as a kid in diapers.
It's still a jam.
Oh yeah.
Still a jam.
Do you have siblings?
I do, yeah. I'm the oldest of three, so I was the golden child growing up, as happens when you're the oldest. But and now my parents probably totally rethink that because I'm a musician. No, they're awesome. They've always been really supportive. But yeah, it's interesting because my brother and sister never, my younger brother and younger sister never picked up music really. My sister played a little bit guitar and sang a little bit, but it was a very short-lived kind of thing. And so I was really the only one in my family that ever played or was musically inclined. What about guilty pleasures? What's a guilty pleasure song of yours right now?
The song Mood?
Yep.
That'll pop in my head every now and then.
Cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of, older guilty pleasures, like going back to when I was in the UK, like back in the States, like clubs are like, this is either a hip hop club or it's a, an electronic club or it's, a place with a band. It's not anything else. It's either that or that. But in the UK, it's like, okay, we got our dance room, we have our hip hop room, and then they have the cheesy pop room, which is all.
I would be in the cheesy pop room all day.
Absolutely, it's all the hits of the late '90s and the early 2000s, and everyone's just dancing with their friends in a circle and belting all the songs from their youth. So those are all my guilty pleasures as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't go to clubs usually, but the one that I do go to a lot with my friends in Charlotte is called the Roxbury, and it's like an 80s and 90s only bar and dance club. And like they only play like, the old school rap, and they'll play like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and John Bon Jovi and Madonna and stuff like that. And that's where I love to hang out because that place is super fun. And I'm into all that music. So for me, like if I'm going to be at a club, that's the kind of music I want to dance to.
What about you? Guilty pleasures? What's in your head right now?
Oh man, lately it's been Levitating by Dua Lipa.
Okay.
That one I've been into it. I didn't want to be into it, but I can't really help it. I just think it's super catchy. Yeah, she's good. She's got some songs, like her lesser known songs are really good sometimes. I found Homesick, which is a song by her, which I really, really like. I think Chris Martin from Coldplay co-wrote it actually.
Okay.
But it's, I believe that's right. But man, that is a good song. It's just like a ballad, which I didn't know Dua Lipa did, but she does, and it's pretty good.
Do you know the podcast Song Exploder?
Yes. I haven't listened to that one a whole lot, but I do know it.
Okay. I think they did one, I think it was Levitating they did. And it's really interesting. It was one of those... I may
have to check out that one now, because that's my current guilty pleasure, so.
Yeah. I think it was one of those songs you hear about that was like, we just kind of went in and came out with the song, If only
yeah,
we're
it's
always
crazy
that
to me
easy.
when you hear that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hear stories about that. Like I remember hearing about Green Day, the song "Time of Your Life," which is Good Riddance.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's both of those, like in parentheses, "Time of Your Life," or parentheticals. That they went in and they like the producer was just like, go sit outside for 30 minutes, and he like just wrote the string part, and it's all like on a keyboard or something. Like there's no real violins on it.
Okay.
But like very famous bridge part, which is just strings, is like all something he came up with in like 15 to 30 minutes, which you hear stuff like that and I'm like, man, I can't believe that happened. My producer told me another thing, that Phil Collins, when he did that In the Air Tonight song, when he does the drum fill, that's like that really famous ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. That was just like him playing around out in the hallway on drums. And he didn't know they were recording it. They just left it on accident or something, and then they put that in the song. Like, that was never even supposed to be a part of the song. Which
Happy
is like
accidents,
the part
yeah.
that everyone does, yeah, which is crazy.
Is there anything specific you're hoping people who listen to your EP take away? Whether it's the
I think more than
storytelling
Yeah, I think more than anything, I think I just hope that it connects with people, even if that's on an individual song basis. I just, more than anything, want music to make people feel less alone and feel like they can relate to it, and for it to be a soundtrack to their life. Because that's what music's always been to me. It's been this constant thing that is there, no matter what part of your life you're in. Could be bad, could be good. There's a song I think that a lot of us can kind of go back to, or an album, or an artist, and we associate that time in our life with that artist, or with that song, or with that record. And that's what I want my music to do for people, because that's what music has done for me.
Links to Kevin's music and everything else can be found in the show notes, including the Indie Echo Spotify playlist, where you can hear music from all the guests featured on the show. If you're on Apple Podcasts, if you could please rate the show 5 stars, it would really help us gain exposure. Indie Echo is a product of Hi5 Music, an online production studio that brings your bedroom demos to life. To be featured or request an artist, use the contact form link on my Instagram @Hi5 Music, and you can follow the show @Indie Echo Podcast. Thank you for listening.